This is the Unrationed podcast. My name is Evan Chasteen,
I'm Josh Randa.
Tony Albrecht.
and we begin every episode by jumping in and sharing a wild moment from our week. So, let's do it. Tony, what's your wild moment?
A few weeks ago, we saw a fox out back in the backyard, and we've seen the fox a couple times recently, including Seville had a stare down with the fox for a few minutes. And then we saw a fox dead on the road, down just a couple hundred yards. Don't know if it's our fox, but interesting how, yeah, as a family, like Sibyl and I, and actually her parents, who've seen the fox as well, um, by that. Uh, it's one of those, a little reminder of, you know, the circle of life. Did I just make up that saying? Is that something have you ever heard that before? The circle of life?
I don't
No,
think I've heard it not in song form.
Oh,
Like
you've heard
anybody.
it though. You've
Yeah,
heard
yeah.
it?
Yes.
Oh, interesting. Oh,
Yeah.
I
Those
thought
are
I
some of
knew.
my favorite lines from Lion King when Mufasa takes Simba out. Anyways.
it's
Hmm.
so good.
I'm not familiar with that. I'll Google it. Well, that was Lion King.
Lion King. Yes. It is probably a good movie for us to break down actually in an episode as far as the development of masculine maturity.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
great
because
journey.
Simba gets pinned,
Pinned you
Yeah.
and then
again.
he grows up, and then he gets pinned again.
That's right.
Josh, how about you?
Yeah. So I was out in the mountains last week and we were climbing this mountain called Mount Huron. And me and a buddy, and we're like maybe 750 feet from the summit. And this mountain goat like starts walking down off the summit. And he just like looks old and wise and just super cool. And he just stops there and stares at us and then just like gets out of our way. And so it was like an invitation to keep going to the summit. Like both of us like reflected on it quite a bit. And so we get home and we Google like the spirit animal of a mountain goat. And basically it's like, stretch yourself, reach for new heights and all this stuff. Like, yes, this is this is amazing. So yeah, my wild moment was looking at a mountain goat in his eyes and then him inviting me to go to the summit, which was pretty cool.
Is the mountain goat your spirit animal?
I thought it was a wolf, but the mountain goat is pretty cool. I know who your spirit animal is now, according to your check-in this morning. Do you want to explain
Uh,
your Taylor Swift?
oh, yeah. I mean, it is interesting that has come up. Is that actually I posted on LinkedIn this morning about doing a workout with Seville last night, like this kickboxing workout
Mm-hmm.
at this gym she started going to. And I just told Alexa to turn on a playlist, and it started with this Taylor Swift song that I've never heard before. And I've had this history over the last 10 years now where there will just be Taylor Swift songs that I just cannot help
Yeah,
but absolutely love.
she's
That
good.
and this was another one where I was like, I've never heard this song before, but it was just I haven't had that experience with a Taylor Swift song in several years now. But it just took me right back and was just a reminder that yes, Taylor Swift is my spirit animal.
My kids
Uh,
go to bed to Taylor Swift. Like they ask for Taylor Swift all too well. And so me and my wife like take the kids for like a drive and put on all too well and they just like fall asleep immediately. I need to write her a letter.
I'm gonna try that.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Mm.
Evan, how about you, buddy?
Hmm. So we kicked off another Wild 32 this week with some people who have not gone through Wild 32. So it's expanded beyond the three of us at the moment. We've got Billy, Trent, and David who have joined us. The first three men other than the three of us who have engaged with Wilds in the Woods in some sort of official capacity, which is really cool and exciting. And I think just a reminder that growth happens this way, like three people and then three more where we still kind of currently know all the names of everybody. I'm going on a tangent now. This isn't necessarily my wild moment. And a part of it, we sit in silence for 10 minutes, silence and solitude for 10 minutes every day. And we also spend 10 minutes outside every day. And so I'm trying to combine those more this round. I didn't try to combine those two things last round, partly because I was building a chicken coop last round and my 10 minutes outside was a fairly easy one. And this time I'm not building a chicken coop and it's a little more hot. So spending time outside doesn't come as naturally. I've noticed this time how much more time I spend inside. So yesterday I spent 10 minutes sitting outside, and after the first 5 minutes, it started raining on me, which was kind of a cool experience to sit in the rain and find joy in something that's often avoided by me. I don't know if everybody avoids being in the rain with their clothes on, but there's something about it that I typically want to run through. But the other day, I watched my kids play in the rain for the first time. It's raining outside, and they went and like ran around in the driveway. And it's like, oh yeah, the concept of staying dry or
Yeah.
not being in the rain is learned.
Pretty
It's
good.
like the natural position or the natural mindset is to go run in it and allow it to soak you. And at some point in my life, I've learned that's an inconvenience. And so I enjoyed sitting in the rain yesterday, thinking about my kids embracing it and just being quiet.
I like that.
Hashtag wild.
There it is. So today's episode, I thought we'd spend some time talking about the importance of physical fitness or being in shape or our athletic ability. I don't know, whatever words we want to put around this, right? I don't think it's necessarily one thing, but having been on Zoom with the two of you and going through Wild 32, my physical fitness, the way my body looks and the way my body feels is dramatically different. The scale tells me that my body is dramatically different from before I started engaging with the wild. So what would you guys call this? Like, is there a label that's fitting? And then why is it important? Or what questions would kind of kick us off on a fun conversation about being fit in some way?
Fitness sounds like the right word. So in the context of the wilds and the woods and what we're doing here, we're trying to become better versions of ourselves. And I know for me that when I am feeling good, when I'm living out my values, part of that is going to necessarily include working my body out, right? And just like I feel better, my mind works better, my body works better, my body looks better. It's I appreciate your bringing this up today. Um, I just referred to my LinkedIn post this morning. With this go of the Wild 32, I'm finding myself. I'm not running this week, but I'm still working out every day, which is really unusual for me. I've found that between the training for that race and then playing soccer at 39 years old, like once or twice a week, I was starting to break down a little bit. Like I'm having some issues with like a foot. I've been having a little bit of knee problem, leading up to the race. And one thing that is becoming clear is like I still don't tend to my weaknesses physically. My weaknesses being diet. Diet is a huge weakness of mine, where it's like I have a tendency to not pay attention to it. And then another um, is the thing I was referring to, where I did this workout with Seville. She's been trying to get me to do yoga the entire time we've been together, 7 years now. And I've done yoga with her less than 10 times. And she's a really talented yoga teacher, but and this extends from like yoga and stretching to like weightlifting and like getting in the weight room. And I've always had this, frankly, it's insecurity around not being good at something or feeling awkward or feeling weak that has led me to avoid certain things, certain activities around stretching or lifting things, and sticking to the things that I feel like I'm good at, which largely includes like running,
Yeah.
or like eye-hand coordination stuff. I'm fairly adept at those sorts of things. And so I'm like, this is the last Wild 32 before I'm 40 years old. We are climbing, and maybe we'll touch on how we're adjusting our plan for Colorado a little bit in a way that's really exciting, where we're going to climb a 14,000 foot mountain, one of the tallest mountains in the US. That's fantastic. But like I'm recognizing in myself that while on its face I have been physically fit, and I'm fairly athletic, uh, I have been doing it in a way that's a little bit of an illusion, where I only lean into, and particularly with like social media, I will show things that demonstrate my strengths while continuing to paper over or avoid my weaknesses. Um, in a way that's really problematic and will only become more problematic as I age. So I'm trying to leverage Wild 32 and this point of being like, dude, you can't, if you keep going out and running 25 miles a week, you're just going to break down more. Like you need to do the things to get your weight down from where I've gotten it down to like I'm at 182, which is a touch over my fighting weight, but like better than like the 196 I was at 6 months ago. But you need to keep getting the weight down, and you need to be doing the things to make your body more nimble and more limber and more flexible, so that you can do those
Yeah.
other things that you're good at. And that was, thanks for teeing me up, Evan, to go eat it. What was that? Was that 20 minutes? Did I roll for
Yeah.
20 minutes there?
Thanks for listening to the Unrationed podcast. No, I think what you're talking about is related to physical fitness or fitness in some capacity, or more than some capacity, but it touches on, I think, mainly something else or some other category that I don't have a word for at the moment, which is this idea that maybe it's masks. Like we have masks. We show people our masks, which would be like the best of us. And I think, and this would take some research to put more precise terms around, but some of us don't know we're wearing masks. which is to say we don't know that our weaknesses exist and that we're hiding them. We're just going about life as if we just are who we are.
Yeah.
And I would also say that for a long time, men engaged in rituals and in rites of passage that helped bring those things to light, bring the shadow self to light, like bring it to awareness or to consciousness. Because what's not in your consciousness can't be worked on. It is the act of bringing to consciousness. I think this is why I like our wording around substances and sugar in particular. With Wild 32, we call it substance awareness and sugar awareness, because it's not the prohibition of those things that transforms how we interact with them. It's our awareness of our interactions with those things that transforms us as individuals through our relationship, our aware relationship with a substance. So I think we're getting off from physical fitness, but I like that. Josh, what do you think?
Yeah, the word that kept coming to mind when Tony was talking was awareness, where like the thing that, well, I'll tackle this in two parts. When I'm thinking about like Wild 32 and these unrationed events, there's a certain element of like baseline fitness that as men or human beings we need to maintain. Not necessarily physical fitness, like any type of fitness where it's like think about the 10 commandments. The baseline is thou shalt not kill. Like that's a pretty easy thing to achieve. Like just don't kill somebody. That's pretty awesome. And then it's all up from there.
Depending on where you were born and what time frame.
Great point. In our current day and age, it should be relatively easy to not kill. Anyways, but like thinking about that in the same vein with what we're doing here, it's like, okay, what is our certain element of baseline fitness that we should be able to maintain in perpetuity? And just really striving for that, and then everything else on top is kind of gravy. So I'm always trying to think about like, what is my baseline fitness and how do I improve it? How do I get a little bit better? But I think to Tony's point, that amount of like awareness to like what your weak spots are that will impact your baseline fitness, I think are always really, really critical. Like I was hiking down a mountain the other day and I started to feel pain in my joints. Well, it's not necessarily that I have a joint issue. It's probably that I have a strength issue, like either my core, my quads, or something. So we have these symptoms that we are aware of, but we're actually not aware of the contributing factors to those symptoms. And I think kind of when Tony was talking about it, that's what was resonating with me. It's where we have to sit with our discomfort in our bodies or in life and try and really think about what is actually contributing to this weakness or this pain point or this hot spot. So yeah, I really, really appreciated you talking about it, Tony. But again, it's the same thing with like the booze or the sugar and everything. We start to realize what is our relationship with it, and what are the triggers for it.
And ultimately, maybe what we're gunning for here is a holistic approach to health and personal development, right? Where my impulse when I think about getting fit, what that means to me is that I'm going out and I'm covering more ground, basically. That I know I'm very fit when I can go out and run a marathon at a pretty good clip. That's how I know I'm fit.
I like that you add a pretty good clip onto that. Like it's not just a marathon for you. Like I find humor in that. Having never run a marathon at any clip, that's a fun fact. Like I want to be able to say, oh yeah, I know I'm in shape if I can run a marathon at a good clip.
Well, and that's actually another rabbit hole that I've been thinking about over the last several days, actually, as we've been toying around with what we're doing in Colorado. With so I'm going to put a pin in that one because I know we're going to go down that rabbit hole. But it is this. It's simply a matter of like pushing, right? It's like can I push myself in a certain way? And if I can push myself 26 miles um, in a certain amount of time, and say, okay, that's how you know you're fit. Now, the problem with that mentality, particularly when I was 25 or 30 years old, or even 35, is that I could do that in a non-holistic way, where it's like I was strong enough or fast enough or stupid enough to say, I don't need to stretch. I don't need to worry about my diet. I don't need to worry about, like Josh is saying, my joints. Whereas like now, I'm like, oh my God, everything is starting to crack and pop as I'm moving away. So what is happening? What's happening is totally natural, but it's just revealing the weaknesses and how I've been going about it, right? In the way that I haven't worried about it from a holistic perspective.
Yeah.
To Josh's point.
This is what I'm about to say. I know is partly rooted in ego as well, but there's also like another element of it that what Tony was saying. It's like there's the return home too that like has to be motivating in the or the motivation for the preparation as well. So like in April, I did a race and I was like, I'll be damned if I was had to fly home the next day, and I'll be like, I'll be damned if I don't carry my son or help carry bags through the airport or whatever after this race. I'm like hobbling and my feet are a mess, and I'm sure I look like I was so behind like my entire family, but I'm like, I'm gonna help, And that moment sticks out in my mind. It's like that's why I need to prepare more. Like I should still be able to do these
Mm.
things that hopefully bring me alive and help me be a better man. But I can't be fully like torn down and ripped apart and in pieces afterwards because then everybody has to put me back together as opposed to showing up whole when I come home. So it's not that we shouldn't be aggressive and try and like go hard at things, but we got to be thinking about how we show up and return home after these big events because that's pretty much the whole, one of the major reasons why we do it. But anyways,
Yeah, Josh, as you were talking, I was thinking about motivating factors. Like what is it that motivates us to even be in shape? And I thought back to our second episode, which we talked a fair bit about death, right? So I think I one motivating factor is like this kicking the can down the road a little bit to engage with death, but I think there's another way to hold that and at the same time have it be a preparation. Like we can't do this forever. And I think we start to learn that as we age, but we're learning it because we're engaging with our body, not because we're just
yeah.
ignoring our body. I think those are two different pathways to
Hmm.
old age, which is I'm just going to not pay attention because I know I'm going to die, or I'm going to face this head on and continue to take care of this body as it deteriorates
Hmm.
and really face death in our finite time in these bodies on this earth in a way that I think is more impactful for us and our families as we go down that route.
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
that's an awesome point, Evan, and something that's been really acute for me recently. Where, as you guys know, my mom has Alzheimer's, right? And she was diagnosed late 60s, so fairly early. And so I have enough information to know that I am predisposed to that. And yet and there's also strong evidence showing that sugar contributes. That if your diet is high in sugar and you're sedentary or relatively so, your risks increase. And so I've been finding myself recently. I feel like I keep going back to these same notes, um, but like I'm a sucker for gummy bears, and
We
like
know.
gummies of yeah. Well, like there has been an element where, so touching on the awareness, you know, and like spending more time trying to be more conscious about it. Where I'm saying, where I am saying, what are you doing? In a way of like, why eat the gummy bears when the upside is so minimal, but like these habits that
Yeah.
you've developed over the course of your entire life that have the risk of essentially ruining how you dismount from this life. I guess it kind of goes to that point Josh was making about to be able to walk through the airport after the long race, you need to be preparing ahead of time. Well, like for me to be able to walk through the airport on my way home when it's time to end this life, like this is the sort of shit I need to be attending to today
Yeah.
or 10 years ago. And certainly over the next 10 years. Like I have to do it. Uh, and and maybe that's, yeah, I mean, maybe that is one of the real motivating factors for why I'm so committed to what we're doing here, because it is the things I need to do today to make myself better for the time between now and whenever this ride ends.
It's pretty good.
I think it's acute for me for similar reasons. Tony, my mom died when she was 48 from breast cancer, and she had two siblings. So there were she had three siblings, so four kids altogether. Only one of her siblings is still alive, and both of her parents are dead. So I only have one person on all of my mom's side of their family that's still alive. And there is something to that. That's like in my mind, there's nothing I can do to like make my lifespan like beyond 60. Like my horizon for how long I'll be on this earth, whether statistically it's longer than that, maybe even there are other things I could look to that actually tell me it is longer than that. But my time horizon is uh, not as long as if I didn't face those circumstances where everybody on her side of the family is not here anymore, which means I'm more than halfway through, which means something like Wilds in the Woods is helping me focus or be aware of what is important, which my body being fit isn't just step on the scale and feel good about myself. It seems as though I am a better dad to my children. I'm a better husband to my wife. Not only today, but in 10 years when my son is wanting to go on a run or join a track team or like do whatever it is that he's wanting to do. I just have this image in my mind, something that's motivating. Maybe I've said this on here before, but I want to run with Boone when he's in high school. I want to run with Olive when she's in high school and keep up with them. And I want to run with my grandkids when they're old enough to run. And like, I want them to look forward to going on a run with Grandpa. There's, whether this all happens or not, it changes my mindset today
Heck yeah,
because
man.
you can only get there one day at a time. And I want to be in shape today so that I can engage fully with those around me in the future.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
was something as you were talking there, Evan, that made me think of what I was reading last night. I started reading King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, which that may be the book we've really been looking for. Like Iron John is fantastic. Adam's Return is really strong. This book, like every page, I'm just highlighting
Hmm.
the whole page. It's a problem.
I think we'll continue to find books like this, actually. But continue, yes.
Yeah. So their starting point is, I think the starting point that we've come to is, what do we do with the fact that we're operating in this society that has lost uh, any semblance of initiatory rights, right? And the way they're framing the problem is that we end up with boy psychology. Okay? And this book is about Jungian archetypes and kind of how you go from boy psychology to mature masculinity. And when I'm hearing myself describing these things, like one of the pages that has really struck me so far is describing all these things that are basically just boys pretending to be men. And like me at 26 going out and like busting my ass as fast as I can on my first race. Like my first race as an adult, I remember, was in 2011, 12-mile trail race. I went out and I got third out of like 120 runners in my first race. I was a man child. Like I was a boy pretending to be a man who went out there and just like ran in this really immature way. And Josh knows about my immaturity when it comes to running, just being, and I don't know if we've already got the explicit on this episode, so I'll refuse from dropping the F-bomb I was about to drop. But just doing stupid stuff because I was compensating for something. And it, it seems that what we're doing here is trying to, like, well, I know for me, it's about trying to really understand where that's coming from and all the ways that that has manifested in my life, how it continues to manifest today. I would say that like my struggle with gummy bears is an example. But like in that specific area of my life, I'm still a boy pretending to be a man, like on that thing. Whereas like on these all these other ways, I've grown tremendously over the man child that I was 12 years ago. But there are still those details, and I hope that they're becoming like smaller and smaller pieces of who I am today. But it is those things um, that really require attention, right? If we want to get to the point, like you're saying, Evan, of where we can run with our grandchildren. So that idea sounds awesome. Like, I'm going to have to be around 75 to really have a shot at running with my grandkids. And hell, I'm going to have to change some things, I think, today if I want to be running, like, let's say me and my son running a marathon together, right? Like I probably need to be making some changes now to be in a position to do that.
And child.
The boy
When you were
psychology.
talking,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Josh. No, you're good to go.
Yeah, when you were talking just about like running with your kids and your grandchildren and everything, it took me back to like the motivation again today. So we on Wild 32 every morning, this group of 6 dudes now, we check in with each other. And so we ask two questions at the end, or we share two things at the end. I'm grateful for, and I feel. And so my feeling this morning was I feel like I'm missing a date or like time with my wife. So the last few weeks it's been like go, go, go. We put the kids down and we're both exhausted. It's like, let's go to bed. And so I do think there's like an element of the baseline fitness and like running, like the motivation is like running with my grandchildren as well. But it's like, how do I run with my wife? Like metaphorically speaking, where it's like, I don't want to be, if I'm more fit, I can show up for my day job and I can show up for my family. And then I can also improve my day job too. How I interact and how I'm aware of like all the things going on, like what zaps energy, what doesn't, what can I change, what can I not. So I think, all these things that we're talking about, there's parallels. My brother says all things in life mirror all things in life. And it's like, okay, how do we take these things that we're learning and we're feeling inside of our body, but applying it to the things that are inside of our control so that we can show up for the people in the future that we haven't even seen their faces, but show up for the people that, are in our life right now. And so, yeah, both of when you guys were talking, like, yeah, just like how my posture, when I sit at my desk, so I'm not like, so I can give a proper hug or something, little things like that, just like that awareness of it helps bring a lot of motivation and context to the changes that we make on a daily basis.
All things in life mirror all things in life.
It's
That was
very
really,
good.
that's really good. Uh, I think Richard Rohr, he wrote Adam's Return, says how you do one thing is how you do everything, and that kind of
Yeah.
is a similar sentiment to me. But yeah, and I think everything we're talking about, Tony, what you're talking about, this is all metaphorical and literal. Like both are
Yeah.
very true. Like being able to run with my grandkids is literal, but there's a metaphor there that guides how I go about my days, where it is less about running with my grandkids and more about living like the person who will be able to run with his grandkids one day. So we did not get into anything practical about fitness, but I think we spent a lot of time uh, exploring maybe just like the more motivational or sentiments behind why we even focus on our body or exercise or what we're putting into our body. I mean, that's a pretty big portion of Wild 32. And I imagine will be a pretty big portion of what goes on at an unrationed event, an unrationed rite of passage. Like there's this heavy physical aspect to it. And we can continue to explore that. And then I listened to a podcast this week I would recommend. It was on the Art of Manliness. And there was this guy, I forget his name. Let me see if I can pull it up quick. This is the Art of Manliness, physical benchmarks every man should meet at every age.
Mm.
It's a really great episode where I think this host, who is Dan John, he's like 63 years old and in really good shape and just kind of has developed these benchmarks that men should be able to meet physically, not just for their health, but in case of an emergency, which is what a funny, like not a funny, which is an important motivating factor too, is
Yeah.
like you don't want to be the one that people are saving. You want to be the one doing the saving type
Yeah.
of a mindset, which
Yeah.
is really a
That's
cool
powerful.
gift. Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the Unrationed Podcast. If you'd like to join us in a Wild 32, is this a cohort challenge? Wild 32 challenge. We haven't called it a challenge necessarily, have we?
No,
It does.
think we bat like we I don't think we bashed, but we talked about challenges and tried to, I think, make this one's about progress.
Yeah.
And so it is challenging, but the challenge like denotes like if you don't make it, you fail. I feel like.
Yeah. So if you'd like to make some progress in life,
Yeah.
and join us for Wild 32. Tony, what were you going to say? You had something on the tip of your tongue there.
It's a challenging cohort, right?
Just makes all the words.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So thank you for listening to the Unrationed podcast. If you'd like to join us for Wild 32, visit wildsandthewoods.com.
See ya.
And scene.